So anyway, we'll kick it off with Damian, and then Tristan, give us maybe 2 or 3 minutes of background and qualifications why you decided to run.
Well, I know a lot of you know me. For those of you that don't, I'm a first-generation immigrant. My first language was not English. I was born in Mexicali. I grew up in an immigrant rural community. So, for those of you growing up in a rural community to begin with, or coming from a different country, you understand, those obstacles. I was very fortunate to have a family who valued education above anything else. And they always worked really hard to make sure that I had those resources. So even when we lived in Mexico, I commute every single day, across the border to go to a school. I remember walking to the corner, getting on the taxi, standing in line, crossing the border, getting through that every single day back and forth. Best part of it was the ice cream on the way back. Fortunately, I was able to excel in school and earn a scholarship to a private school starting in high school. It's in Rancho Mirage. I grew up in the border area, so we would commute to the Palm Springs area. If you know, that's where a lot of the picking is done, all the farm work is done, date work, all that work. So that's where I spent most of my childhood.
Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. We've got Damian, you're frozen.
I was saying, can you see me now?
Yeah, I think so. So let's pick up.
Can you hear me now?
Off then. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was saying that I got a scholarship to Brandeis. I got 2 degrees, one in philosophy, one in Latin American studies, to be exact. Right after university, which was not an easy task, getting through it on my own. I didn't ask for a lot of help, especially not from my family. Everyone's pretty not well off, so I never felt comfortable asking for resources from home. So it was a struggle. Moved back home specifically to make sure that my mother and my sister had the support network that they needed. Help them to stabilize life. My mom started her own business. My sister was able to get into a university of her own and excel. And it wasn't until 30, when my sister left for college, that I moved out to Arizona. And I was very deliberate about moving out here at the time, in that growing up, it was reinforced in me that I have an obligation to my community, the Latino community, the American community, for everything that it's done, and for me to help to get ahead. And I just really was struggling on how I can make the biggest difference. And with everything coming out of the news, with SB 1070, basically Arizona putting out horrible legislation, then that becomes the standard in other states, and the standard in other states become US standards, which then become international standards. So I very much dislike how much of that negative influence Arizona was putting out there. And I thought that the place, without knowing the community out here, without having a network, the place where I could be most effective would be Arizona, in the vanguard of the fight. Not the funnest place. Would have been nice to go somewhere not so hot, growing up in the desert all the time, but this is where it was. And when I came here, the first thing I had to do was learn how to get involved in organizations. I was working as a financial advisor at the time. I did that as a career for 10 years. And I learned a lot about board service. I had to navigate corporate America to learn about board service, working with employee resource groups, If you're familiar with them, they're not familiar with them. They're the networks within the corporations that allow some kind of social mobility within the corporate structure as well. So I got a lot of experience from that, you know, how corporations work with nonprofits, how budgets are managed, all of the things that eventually became very useful when I started with the party. And that was in 2016, you know, when Trump came out there and, you know, said the foulest things you could imagine about me and my friends and our community as a whole. Being a student of history, I fully was aware that that kind of language, you know, what it leads to, you know, and, you know, the persecution, the violence, the anger, and it was what fired me up to begin with. Once I got started, I realized I'd made a lot of assumptions about our party, you know, and how it works. And I realized that all of us, most of us, are volunteers, and we have a lot of needs and need a lot of help. And so ever since then, I've rolled up my sleeves and have done the work, from being an LD communications chair to LD second vice chair to, you know, running for ADP board and you know, improving its diversity through affirmative action. Lots of room to go, but laying the groundwork. And now as vice chair, you know, it's what's gotten me here today. So the programs that I've launched and managed, like ADP Academy, which has helped train, you know, 2,500, you know, almost 3,000 people out here in Arizona during this cycle. You know, looking at improving relationships between the departments, you know, in our organization. I don't know any other vice chair that had keys to the office and an actual desk there, you know, to work out of. That's how often I was there putting in the hours, doing the work. So I'm very familiar with the staff on both sides, the staff that works in the office, that, you know, ADLCC, you know, Arizona List, like all of these people and all the organizations that come through there. There's a lot of moving pieces in the Democratic Party. Knowing how to navigate them and knowing how to talk to people to build things collaboratively is the kind of experience I'm bringing to the table. So with that, I'll take any other questions from John or
Well,
about what I just said.
We've got a lot of questions, but right now let's just give Tristan a chance to introduce herself as well. Then we'll come back with questions and kind of have a dialogue back and forth, and then hopefully other people will also chime in. So Tristan, go ahead. Oh,
I'm on mute. All right. You think after 9 months of this that I would know better.
We all have that problem.
First and foremost, thank you so much for having me this morning. I certainly appreciate the opportunity. And I do apologize in advance. I may have to step out here a little bit early as I have started my work day. So I may have to depart here shortly. But again, thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Tristan Topps, and I currently am a precinct committee person in Legislative District 18. And it is certainly my honor and my privilege and pleasure to have the opportunity to run for First Vice Chair of the Maricopa County Democratic Party. A little bit about me: I've called Arizona home since 2001. My family initially moved here from Minnesota. So a little bit of change in climate. We went from one extreme to the next, but this really was like coming home. My mom has family here. She grew up here, grew up in Holbrook, up in Navajo County. So very much for her, this was a homecoming. So I love living in Arizona. I've loved calling this place home for so long. I graduated from Hampton University, which is a historically Black college in Hampton University, or excuse me, in Hampton, Virginia, in 2005, where I earned my degree in journalism. and had lofty goals and aspirations of being a network news anchor, and quickly realized that was not my calling and that was not the path that I had been placed on. So I took positions in sales and marketing at various companies throughout the Valley here. And during that time, decided that I wanted to pursue politics. I had always had an interest in politics and just understanding the nature of our political landscape. So I was looking for a way in which I could pursue that, but also develop my skills as an effective communicator. So I made the decision to enroll at the Graduate School of Political Management at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. And I graduated in 2015 with my master's degree in strategic public relations. So having my master's degree in tow, coming back here once again to Arizona, trying to figure out where I fit in and how to get involved. And at the advice of a classmate who said, you know what? Find your LD, find your legislative district, and just start showing up. So that's what I did. I started showing up to my district meetings and started to really learn and understand what was happening in politics here in Arizona and how it affected me and how it affected my family and the community that I lived in. And shortly thereafter, I was recruited to become a precinct committee person and have volunteered my time since 2016. And very proud of the work that we've done in Legislative District 18, taking our red district and now flipping it to its beautiful shade of blue. And it's been an honor to be a part of the team of volunteers that has sent 2 Democratic state representatives and a Democratic state senator to the legislature, and very pleased with our outcomes in this past election, having all 3 of them re-elected, and just so proud of the work that they have done. And I certainly don't diminish the work that the party has done over the last several years. We have made tremendous strides in every facet, but I feel that there's more work that can be done, particularly when it comes to our outreach and our engagement with our underrepresented, underserved, and minority communities. And I feel that is where the most growth opportunity lies. And we can use the strength of our diverse communities to strengthen our party. And we can build these community connections, and we can continue to develop our collective impact to ensure that we continue to recruit the very best candidates that represent the best interests, not just of Democrats within Maricopa County, not just Democrats within the state, but really all Arizonans. And so that is what I am looking to accomplish, to get into those communities, to communicate with our voters at every level, not just those that turn out every election, but those that are low turnout voters, those that aren't quite sure where they fit into the party and aren't sure where they belong. We are a big tent party, and we should be welcoming to everybody. And it is my job, it is my goal, it is my mission as First Vice Chair to get into those communities and better understand their needs and how we as Democrats can meet the people where they are.
Thank you, and congratulations, by the way, on LD18.
Yeah,
and
it was a team effort.
Yeah, it's just amazing what has been accomplished there, and you guys certainly set the bar that we all strive to get over in our other respective districts as well. We'd love to achieve what you've been able to accomplish.
Absolutely, and we can do it. We can do it together. We can take best practices from our district and other districts, and we can bring all of those things together, put together a strategic plan so that we can be successful across the board.
So I'm curious to know, we just finished a general election, and I think it's fair to say that the results were kind of mixed, especially from the standpoint of the state and county and LD levels, notwithstanding your success in LD 18. Some of us were less successful, and there was a fair amount of disappointment, I think, in the results in the down ballot, some of the down ballot races. So I'm curious to just kind of get a little bit of insight from each of you as to what your thoughts are on the election, what, if anything, could have been done better, and what suggestions you have for going forward as as a county party in particular. Damian?
I know, Tristan, you're crunched for time, so if you'd like to answer first, just in case.
Yes, I will. I will give my 2 cents, and then unfortunately, I've got to run off to another meeting. But I, of course, I'm thrilled with the outcome that we had in LD18. I'm thrilled that as a state, we were able to deliver Arizona for President-elect Joe Biden, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. But needless to say, it was disappointing, some of our down ballot races. And it's not for lack of talent. It is not for lack of effort. It is not for lack of qualifications within our candidates. I think we had a fantastic slate of candidates who ran the very best campaigns that they could run. But I think a lot of it had to do perhaps with the excitement of a federal election and all of the attention that was being placed on the state, on the county, and the fact that we were in fact a battleground county. And I can't help but wonder if some of our down ballot candidates perhaps got a little lost in the shuffle, got a little lost in the noise. So I think moving forward, we need to just maintain our focus that our job here at the county level is to elect Democrats. Yes, we can be supportive of those at the top of the ticket, but where are we placing our resources so that we can affect the most positive change and we can generate the outcome that we desire for our down ballot candidates, whether that's volunteer support, whether that's financial resources, whether that is showing up for them and making sure that their message is amplified as much as we amplify the national message, making sure that voters understand that these are the people, these are the candidates that you need to elect because these are the offices that have the greatest impact on our daily lives. And I feel that perhaps maybe some of that got lost in all of the excitement of the federal election, though both were very, very exciting. And again, I'm thrilled with the outcome at the federal level. But again, we need to focus more on our local candidates and making sure that voters understand, the county board of supervisors, the county attorney, the county recorder, for goodness sake. These are the people that are going to make the decisions that are going to have the greatest, most significant impact on how I live my life every day, on how Damian lives his life, how all of us live our lives, and how we interact with our families on a daily basis. And I think that message moving forward needs to be amplified at a greater level.
Damian? Damian, you're still on mute.
As you can see, there's a reason I'm running with Tristan. Tristan and I are on the same page about what's occurring. I could tell you that last 6 months ago, when I started to think about reorganization, and thinking about how it's happened the last 3 times, everything, kind of happens at the very end. I started to think about what we can do to do a better job. And I had this kind of anticipation, I think like all of us did, that we would see some significant change, in the state as well. Some confidence we would get ahead at the presidential level, and seeing those results, completely ecstatic. But not seeing them translated, not just in our county, but also in our legislative district. Not in the state level legislative district. We weren't able to tie in the House. We weren't able to catch a chamber. Those were going to be game changers for how we do business in Arizona. Our county board of supervisors, so close to catching that majority. The people who actually run, our day-to-day lives. So, I was devastated. I still am. And, when it comes to what we can do better, it is, and it ties to Sue's question here, which we'll address, is that we need to build better, stronger infrastructure, that can connect with people in every corner of Maricopa, educate them on what these positions are and how they tie back to their day-to-day lives, and ask them for their vote. make sure they turn out. So, that would be, that's how I feel, and that's the direction that I believe we should be heading. Is it okay for me to tie it into the question
Yeah,
here?
go
I'd
ahead
be
and
happy to.
segue into
Sue-
Sue's question then.
Yeah, segue into Sue's,
And there's others in there as well. So if you want to, go ahead and just start to work
Great.
through those.
So the question is, as affirmative action chair, my mandate was to increase participation in underrepresented communities. How did I accomplish that directive? That's the first part. And when I got elected to affirmative action moderator, I had to learn a few things really quickly. First of all, the committee, the affirmative action committee was a defunct role up until then. People had jokingly told me that people would run around the building and figure out, do you want to run for affirmative action moderator? Do we want to run for affirmative action moderator? And it was just a placeholder position. And I thought it was appalling, because as Sue said, in 2016, I gave every LD a failing grade on their PC participation, because the participation was non-existent. And let me share right now, for example, I had it right handy and then I lost it. Apologies. The numbers were really low. We're talking about like single-digit percentages. The highest was like in the teens in participation. One legislative district wasn't even formed at the time, Legislative District 1. And I was up in arms about it. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, we have Democrats in this community. How do they not even have a board? How can we have PCs if we don't even have a board?
To be clear, just when you're talking about participation, you're talking about PC. Is this the PC versus actual PCs versus allocated PC slots issue, or is it?
Yeah, so I'm saying, like, so allocated PC slots versus the number of people that are participating.
Okay, just to make sure we were all.
So the participation rate was extremely low.
Yeah.
And up until then, I had made every effort, to speak with people about how we can change this. How do what are the programs that the county is running? Like, what are we doing in the LDs? How can we do more? And with the election, going on as well, everything at the time, there wasn't a lot of bandwidth for that. So, still believing that PCs are the foundational part of our organization and how we need to move forward, I started a separate organization just for the purpose of recruiting precinct committee people. And that's what I did. And in that organization, I helped recruit literally hundreds of PCs. And it was all through appointments. We would go around, put up meetings online, recruit individuals, have one-on-one conversations, and give presentations at the local library where we could get a room and I could pay out of pocket $15 for the time to give a presentation. Very affordable. That process went swimmingly. At the time, I remember sending LDs, like stacks of forms saying like, hey, here's 6 of them, here's 12 of them, here's 8 of them. And with the expectation that then they follow up and, do the work in getting them engaged. But, the outreach was there and showing, what it takes, demonstrating, what it takes to do outreach. I did a great job at it. There's another group called AZ 2020 that did a great job at it as well. And that's why we existed, because, there wasn't enough infrastructure to help bring in those people. Over the years after the election, once I was elected as well, affirmative action moderator, having more influence, people were able to trust more and adopt those programs and and not just those programs, develop their own, expand them further. So, yes, 100%, we need to keep doing better. At the time, we were doing worse. We've doubled our capacity now, from about 800 to 1,500. But the way PCs work in Arizona is interesting in that it's always a moving target, because it's based on registration of Democrats. The more Democrats we register, the larger our party becomes, which is a good thing. Right now, although our PCs are at 1,500, and in the past the cap was 5,500. Now the cap is 6,500. So we have 1,000 more positions, available over the last 4 years within the party.
You're talking
and
Maricopa party, right? Maricopa County.
Maricopa. I'm just talking about Maricopa. Yeah, we're all talking about Maricopa.
Okay.
So there's 6,500 positions available in Maricopa, 1,500 of which are filled. Can you imagine what kind of organization we would be if we were running anywhere near capacity? Like the kind of outreach, the kind of engagement, the kind of energy we could bring to the table. I haven't looked at the Republican numbers that closely this cycle, but they've diminished. So what used to be a 1-to-3 ratio where we were behind, that gap is closed to 2 and change. We have 2.1, I think, last time I checked, PCs for their 3.
So if I could just interject, so there was a big increase in 2017, 2018, basically.
Yeah, there was a big increase,
and we were actually up to, if my memory serves, we were actually up to 1,500 PCs in 2018.
Yeah.
The fact that we're still at 1,500 PCs today in 2020, what does that indicate? Does that indicate that the process of recruiting has lost the focus, or what does it tell you? I realize with PCs, it's kind of an issue that it's a bit of a revolving door. There's a lot of PCs that come in and then exit. But one of the things I'm a little personally concerned about, and by the way, you're probably the main reason I'm a PC. I know you're the main reason my wife Jody is a PC. She signed up to be a PC in 2017 at one of the Desert Progressive meetings where you did a White Hats Democrats presentation on the important role that PCs play. And I subsequently signed up through AZ Blue 2020, but you were the one who kind of drew our attention to this issue and the important role that PCs play. So thank you for that. And I think it was an important initiative, but I wonder if it has, if we could be doing a better job with PC recruiting than we're doing today, and if your thoughts and what your thoughts are on how to supercharge that process, because we have sort of plateaued at 1,500, it seems.
Yes. You are we're going to lose a lot of momentum now that Trump is gone. A lot of the gains that we had were due to like fear and hate. So we're going to need to learn to attract people with hope and community, and building things going forward. So it is going to be a different conversation. It's going to be difficult as well because of COVID. We still have to deal with that the next cycle. But it's always this cycle, this kind of like wave pattern. We have to work really, really hard during the election season to make sure all the PCs get elected that have been elected already. So we have to do that double work while we're doing the election. make sure our retention is as close to 100% as possible, and expand, recruit any new candidates during that time to be elected as soon as appointments start. So December 19th, and it's why I'm out there at Univision right now, and I have another 4 or 5 interviews scheduled in Spanish language media, to try and start to touch, these communities in a different way. Obviously, it's not only going to be Spanish speakers that are going to come, but it's bilingual people are reading these things, and that's who we want to connect with. So, opening those doors early is really important, because the appointments will start in January. As soon as the Board of Supervisors can meet, County Board of Supervisors, we should be at the ready with our first big batch of appointments. Anyone who may have missed doing their elected, anyone we've turned on through the holidays, we need to hit the ground running with appointments. And to do that, we need a dedicated countywide PC outreach program, which we have all the tools for. I've got resources, AZ20's got resources, the county, the LDA team's done a phenomenal job. The tools are out there. We just need to aggregate them and make sure they're accessible and applied. That's extremely important.
So
I'm
sorry for jumping around, but we have limited time. So I want to
Oh yeah, and I can talk forever.
As possible. So what you talk about aggregating resources, and that's both inside and outside the party. There are all these resources together. One of the criticisms I often hear made, or one of the questions I often hear asked, is about why there isn't better cooperation within the party between, in particular, the Arizona Democratic State Party and the county party. And you're knowledgeable, obviously, about the county party, and you've been on the inside at the Arizona State Party. I'm curious what your thoughts are from your vantage point about whether it's possible. I mean, I realize campaign law and the national party structure dictates some of this, but can we improve on that? Is there something to be gained? Is there upside potential in building a better working relationship between Maricopa County Democratic Party and the state party?
It is critical to our success to have that relationship be seamless. I cannot stress that enough. And I don't understand sometimes, how we've gotten to this point, but as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of players in this space, and the people that come in, to run a senatorial campaign versus a congressional campaign versus, state legislative campaign, these are warriors, really. Like their job is to fight for that specifically. Our job, I believe, in being county chairs, and boards, is to kind of make sure we smooth out the rough edges, or at least turn some of that energy outward, because there can be infighting that is unnecessary, and I think that some of that infighting, and it happens in families. I mean, we see it all the time. Like, nobody's perfect. We're all one big family. There's a lot of different people. We have big personalities, and sometimes those things impact relationships. So whether it's a personality issue, or whether it's this is my turf issue, all of that can be worked through with proper relationship building and trust within our own community. That's like, as Democrats, when I first got started, I remember telling my mom, it's like, hey, I jokingly saying like, hey, I got into this to fight Republicans, and I can't get through them yet. I'm still fighting my fellow Democrats. Like this is not constructive. And so, you know, if we build a bigger network, you know, it's gonna require that we even be better at this. That if we're gonna be the big tent party, that we listen to each other, that we adapt and respect, you know, the values that we're bringing to the table. You know, I know it sounds kind of heady, but the reality is that, you know, we're all in this together, but there's turfs and personalities that we need to navigate. And
as there are in
wouldn't wish it on-
as there are in any organization.
yeah.
Let me, Scott,
Scott,
I got you
Scott.
registered here, but as someone who has a question, but Sue Kastner has one in the chat that you may want to just take a quick look at, having to do with finance.
All right, so got a few questions in here. The other huge issue is finance. It's actually, yeah, I think it's the main issue. If we look at any of this, we can't develop programs, we can't do any of this work unless we bring in money. And have you looked at the budget demands? Right now, Tristan and I are looking at the budget demands. We were literally just going over things yesterday as well. When it comes to staffing at current levels, we believe that we need to expand our staff, which will mean more money. Specifically, I mean, just think about it. We've got 20 legislative districts, at least 5 people on these boards. It's 100 board members, and all of that is rolling up to Maritza. You know, it's too much for her. You know, she does an awesome job. She's a phenomenal executive director. She's got the right vision, but she doesn't have enough support and resources. And so we need to bring in more resources. Right now, the vision is potentially to have, you know, a couple more deputy executive directors that would be, in essence, the executive directors for the legislative districts. So going forward, the legislative districts would have a level of staff that they can rely on, because you're all volunteers, and we're being asked, you know, to manage areas that are, you know, hundreds of thousands of people with handfuls of volunteers. So we need more resources, more staff. You know, if elected, I'm going to go out there and make this case as clearly as possible. The money is there. How many hundreds of millions of dollars don't fly through Arizona? It's just a matter of making a case for it, adding value, and having these funders realize that they can trust us with the responsibility of carrying this work. So, you know, I've been in these conversations, showing up as much of this as I can, and things are sounding well. So I'm hoping to expand the resources, you know, with the help of the board and the funders. Really basic stuff though, when it comes to the finances too. You know, we want to expand our circle of friends, you know, our communications and media. You know, we could have a bigger footprint given the fact that we have 750,000 registered Democrat out here. So yeah, we got to ask more. We got to ask intelligently, and I strongly believe that once we start to quantify our PC activities and communicating them in a more effective manner, then our stakeholders will be more inclined to properly fund us, and our participation will increase, because people will see that they're actually making a bigger impact than they anticipate. Let me make sure I answered all the questions.
Yeah, so
experience, I haven't.
Eric has one here about the failing grades you gave all the LDs back in 2016. Brian Neely raised the same question. I don't know if you saw that in one of the threads underneath the post for this event. The impression I have is that, you know, probably that didn't help get your message communicated in a positive way. A lot of the existing LDs and the leadership at the LD level viewed that as in a negative light, and maybe
Mhm.
created a certain amount of alienation between what you were trying to do as white hat Democrats, which I think was a great positive thing, but maybe wasn't as well received at the LD level as it might have been had the message been delivered in a different way. Do you have any thoughts looking back on that now?
Oh, well, the reality is, John, that I delivered that message in 15 million different ways, you know, wrapped in a bow, like with kisses, on my knees, on my back, sideways, every single way that I could, beg them to do this work, to acknowledge it. And it was dismissed repeatedly and sometimes insultingly, you know. So unfortunately, the only way that I could get the attention of people, to get them to realize that things are not okay, this is not acceptable, is to think about what it was like for me in school, you know. And when I paid attention is when I got an F on a paper, or a bad grade. I never got an F on a paper. But if I got a grade I didn't like, I was at attention. I was like, wait, what is going on here? And that is exactly what happened, because psychologically that's how we are, right? You know, and I even made I even chose a font that looked like what your teacher would put on there. You know, that F is what your teacher, and people came to attention, you know, and that's the best I could do. And from that, I made some enemies, and I made a lot of new friends who said, "Oh my God, thank you, Damian, for highlighting this and bringing it to the attention." And you know, sometimes it's carrots, sometimes it's a stick. You know, we all want to be liked all the time, but in the end, if what it takes is people to not like me in order for us to do the work, you know, like how much begging can one man do? Like that was the experience that I had. And so you know, I got a mixed bag of response. You know, the people that are in charge of it are not going to be happy. The people that have been alienated in the past or dismissed. I got messages from people saying that they submitted PC applications in the past and they were intentionally not processed.
Yeah,
you know, because people.
there were
Excuse me.
Yeah, I was just going to say I ran in because I did a lot of work with AZ Blue 2020 subsequently in regard to PC recruiting, and I ran into those same types of anecdotes about resistance to actually bringing new PCs in at some of the LDs, which I never could understand, but there was certainly enough reports along those lines to make me believe it was true.
So the premise of the question, John, of like, you know, what could I have done, you know, to be nicer about this, you know, it's kind of like almost again an attack of the same nature that I had to deal with back then. And you know, it's disingenuous. You know, the truth is, focus is recruiting PCs. If people aren't focused on recruiting PCs, then we're going to have words. You're likely not going to like me if you don't want to do this. And this is the entire focus of our organization. So with that said, I wanted to share a little bit about where we are right now, because I mentioned and we're running out of time, and I just wanted to give you a feedback.
Let me just, before you do that, Damian, let me just ask Scott he had a question I think he wanted to ask. I want to make sure we get that in.
Thank you.
Okay, I got two observations real quick. It'll be less than 30 seconds. Number one, my creative writing instructor, who was a Pulitzer Prize winner, told me I only give A's and F's. It's just like the real world, so don't feel bad about the F's. And a second observation is, quite frankly, a whole lot of interaction with MCDP between LD25 and MCDP this last 2 years has been horrible. They haven't given us support. They have at times questioned our integrity, and it's just horrible. It's kind of like I see our relationship to MCDP the way the rest of the world sees the relationship between MCDP and ADP. The big ass fist fight. My question, the very first question on that chat is, without a vision, the people perish. What is your vision? Not, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Now, what's your vision?
Simply put, to leverage the strength of our diverse community to win elections for our fellow Democrats. And that will require a dedicated and heavy lift of party infrastructure.
Okay.
Now, unless there are any other miscellaneous questions, I do want to be respectful of your time. And the last bit I wanted to share here, you know, I'm really proud of LD1 in how they formed, and over the last 4 years, they have a PC quota of 91, and they've gotten 53 PCs, so they're at 58% filled. You know, technically, they're ahead of LD18, which is at 56% filled, but their quota is obviously much higher, 445. But we also have some really difficult situations. LD19 is only at 5%. 5% participation, you know, like that is, we could do better. I know we can do better. 16 is at 8%. There's a lot of teen digits. Most of these are in teen digits. Your average participation, when you look at it all, is about 23%. So we have a long way to go to strengthen our party. I'm doing everything possible now to do it. I may or may not be elected. If I'm not elected, I guarantee you that all the information that I put out in this campaign and will be useful to all of you as PCs so that you can hold your chair accountable. Because that's what we need, is accountability in this office. It's a volunteer position, but we all sign up for it, or we sign up for it and we know what we're signing up for. And we can do way better. This is not where I want to be. This is not where our party wants to be. I don't want to keep losing. Losing is not just an L. It's literally hurts our community and our people. People are dying out there, and I have a sense of urgency around this. So, you know, I'm asking that you all vote for me, that you speak well, vote for Tristan, and as well, you know, it's important that we build a team, and it's why I went to find Tristan, because LD18 is an amazing team. How we build stronger communities or LDs is leveraging best practice. She is the direct connection to that infrastructure so that we can create the support network that is necessary from one LD to the next. You should all be speaking to each other in spaces that are for the LD leaderships as well, especially in areas where areas that have been gerrymandered and there are overlapping districts, where it's important that you have a conversation about intentional outreach. So I've learned a lot over the last 4 years, and I expect to fully implement it and expand our vision and mission. You know, we have the right direction, but we need to expand that to be more inclusive, more diverse, and dare I say aggressive. You know, that we need to be more aggressive about the things that we do. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate you spending this time with us today, Damian, and Tristan, who's not on the call any longer, but please pass along our thanks to her as well. Thank you for all you've done as a volunteer for the party in various capacities over the years. And thank you for running. And I think it's important that these reorganization races have contested candidates because I think it ultimately facilitates a process of self-criticism and self-reflection that I think should be part of the reorganization process. And I think it's, as I've said before, I think that's one of the flaws in the process, especially at the LD and county levels, is that all too often it's a perfunctory process, pro forma. Oftentimes people running without competitive candidates, and consequently tends to kind of just reinforce the status quo. And I think especially in the wake of the most recent election, it's important that we question what we can do better as a party at all different levels. And I appreciate you bringing some of these issues to the fore through your candidacy. I think it's good for the party. And once again, thanks for spending the time with us today. And I anticipate that other candidates will toss their hat in the ring before this is over. And they will also be invited to be guests in this forum in the way that you have. And you're welcome to return as well, Damian, anytime. We appreciate, like I said, appreciate your leadership and involvement. And thank you to everybody who joined the call today. I appreciate your questions, your participation, and I anticipate we'll have at least one other candidate, hopefully next Tuesday, same time, same place. That candidate will also be our guest for Democrats and Coffee, and so watch for announcements on that in the next day or two. Thanks, everybody, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John. Thank you.